So you just found like YouTube videos about this? Is that how you got into it?
I think so. Don't recall exactly.
Okay.
I've been aware of street epistemology for a couple of years, I guess. Where did you get introduced to
I'm
it?
gonna put these on. That's... Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's weird. I first found Anthony Magnabosco's YouTube channel probably from following other like secular conversation YouTube channels, and popped up. But I was really into this when I was in my faith transition away from Mormonism. And I was a student at Brigham Young University, really like immersed in the Mormon culture and looking for an outlet for my critical ideas about faith and things like that. And I thought I was like the only one in the world that thought that faith might be a bad idea for how to, you know, living in Utah, you might feel that way. So,
When did you move from Utah?
I moved to LA 2015, so 6 years ago.
So you're interested in what aspect of street epistemology? It's like from like an anthropological perspective, or are you interested in what aspect of the practice interests you the most?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's probably a lot of different reasons that you could get into this or feel like it's worth exploring.
Yeah.
The anthropological perspective, which just to see if we agree on the definition, would mean like just a general interest in what people believe and where the kind of general level, the water level, like Reed was describing, of sanity or critical thinking. I do have an interest in that and seeing if this is a good way of surveying it or moving it, or just being exposed to different people's beliefs. But selfishly though, I feel like SC and doing SC is a great way of refining your own kind of instinct for those informal logical fallacies that you keep on finding people that they have.
That's not intuitive to me. Like, how would it help you inform your own certainly it would influence the way you think about how beliefs are held in others. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to sort of see my own reflection in people as I talk about their beliefs. Probably really influenced by my background being like faithful, but I feel like every level deeper of SC that I kind of dig into, I realize that I'm digging into further of my own like fallacious reasons for holding my beliefs. And maybe instead of like digging deeper, the analogy would be like peering higher over a fence. And then in every step I take up, I realize, you know, I'm actually employing the same fallacy in my own reasoning. I'm kind of like tapping into that.
How would you know a good reason from a bad reason for believing something?
Awesome! I've always wanted to like participate in something like this.
We're free.
Do you want to put a pin in that and see if we, would you like to street epistemologize
Maybe. I can. I'll see you outside then.
It's not a bad time. Do you want to sit down?
That's awesome. Huh?
Do you want to sit down right now?
I can't right now. We gotta go do the mountain, but when I come back, I'm gonna try to make time.
Okay.
Awesome. I know.
Cute dogs. We should have like a dog cam. Oh, there you go. So, your last question, do you remember what your last question was?
How do you tell the difference between a good reason and a bad reason for believing something?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I keep on like thinking, you know what I thought was a good reason might be a bad reason. Maybe eventually I won't believe anything.
I mean, it's pretty arbitrary, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess the premise of SE is that at some level it's not arbitrary. There are bad reasons, or at least worse and better reasons for holding beliefs.
And to what end?
Okay, so good question. So do you mean what's the point of deciding what are good reasons and bad reasons for holding a belief?
Well, I think we have to qualify good and bad. To what end is it good? To what end is it bad?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just a little bit too abstract.
Yeah. Right, this isn't just some like brain exercise that has no other merit besides it's a fun puzzle. Like, there are definitely implications. I feel like in general I want to believe true things. That's like a value that I hold.
Yeah, you want to believe true things. I want to believe empowering things. I want to believe things that get me closer to my goals.
So when you say empowering, could you define that?
Useful to attaining my interests. I think my primary interest is attempting to anticipate like the future of how people are organized. So I'm interested in beliefs that provide useful stories that get me to that end. I'm not inclined to say that those stories are true, just because I don't really know what that would mean.
You don't know what it would mean to say that any of your beliefs are true? Or that you know that they're true?
It was a shorthand that I used to apply not so long ago. But yeah, I've acquired the belief that the concept of things that are true in and of themselves is not a particularly useful concept to attaining the ends that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. So just to set up like a thought experiment with, using only vague terms, if you had some belief and you could either believe A or B about this subject, and belief A would be closer to the truth given your current understanding of the world, but belief B, you couldn't immediately validate the way you could validate belief A, but it would be more empowering for reaching your, the phrasing that you used before. And you could choose between A or B, just like snapping your fingers. Which would you choose?
Oh, jeez. I don't think I was able to quite follow along.
Yeah, and it probably felt like I'm trying to paint you into a corner
I think what you said made perfect sense, but it was my bad. I don't think I successfully You want to give it another?
Yeah. I think I can try to simplify it. It was a little wordy too. So let's say that you have a choice to believe one thing or another. And one thing is going to be absolutely true, but the other thing is going to be maybe not absolutely true, but a lot more empowering in the way that you were using that word before.
Yeah.
And if you could just snap your fingers and choose one of those, to believe something that was more true or believe something that was more empowering.
Yeah, I would choose the more empowering belief. But that's because I don't believe there is a coherent I mean, I think truth is an incredibly powerful, useful concept historically and still. But I don't think there's anything more to it.
Mm-hmm. So, just so I'm not misunderstanding, oh, look at this little doggy. He's got a limp, but he still made it up that mountain.
I hope he just recently acquired it.
Maybe he acquired it on the mountain.
Yeah.
So, just so I'm not misunderstanding, because the truth is so difficult or maybe impossible to arrive at or even define, it's not an aim worth exploring or like trying to attain.
It's not a concept worth utilizing because of the conflict that follows.
Okay.
People believe in very different truths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they believe wholeheartedly in them. And many people are compelled to do whatever it takes to see their truth prevail. So it seems it wasn't so dangerous before. Before we had technology that allows us to murder people in huge numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so another like hypothetical question that I'm not trying to like paint you into a corner or entrap you at all. It's just sort of like sometimes hypothetical questions are sort of like shortcuts to helping me understand what you believe. So just so I'm following so far, because there's really not only are there unreliable ways of finding truth, and that leads to like subjectivity, everybody having their own truth, disagreeing and then causing conflict. But there's also this sort of better aim, which is to find things that empower you, not a search for absolute truth.
Well, I wouldn't say that's a better aim unless you're oriented by a good end, right?
Okay.
I mean, plenty of people pursue ends that can't be regarded as pro-social or good in any interpretation.
So, are we running into a problem then where we have wanted to avoid the issues of like arriving at so-called absolute truth by instead choosing things that empower us to reach our aims? But do we also have that same problem with the definition of what is a good aim to be empowered towards?
Yeah, that's an intractable problem, I think.
Because people are going to probably try to use some of the same methods to decide which are the best aims as they would have decided which were the truest claims or truths,
Yeah.
So do you think it's better for people to decide to aim for what is true, or to aim for what empowers them in light of the fact that you'll probably be using similar methods for both?
Historically, I think it was better that people aim for the truth. I'm just coming to the conclusion that it's no longer the case.
Because of, you were talking about weapons of war before.
Technology, disruptive technology, has the power to put an end to our species. So evolutionarily speaking, I don't think the concept of truth has a future. But I could be wrong.
There'd be no way of knowing.
Right, we're not going to settle that.
Yeah.
We're not going to settle that. But yeah, I mean that's what compels a lot of my thought. That's what orients me. So.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. So taking off my street epistemology hat, I think that a lot of my motivations are informed by having a very kind of like authoritarian, absolutist view drilled into me as a mainstream fundamentalist Mormon. And it was very black and white before, like this is wrong and right. What the prophet said is always right, given the fact that God would never allow them to say something wrong. So if they said it, it must be right. And when I lost my faith in the prophets, I think I've retained that spirit of absolutism and like, you know, let us declare the truth once we know it, you know?
Yeah. It's have you had any very powerful religious experiences
Yeah, definitely.
from a very young age?
Probably more so as an adult.
Since your conversion or before?
So, what do you mean?
Were you within the church when you had these experiences?
Yeah.
Do you think you could have them now that you're not a believer?
I have, yeah. I do think I could, and I have.
So they're a part of your biology. Yeah?
I believe so, yeah. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I think religious emotions are probably critical to the organization of massive collaborations between people.
I think it's neat. I mean, I know that he's just getting into it and like.
There's so many places I could go right now. But,
Yeah.
Definitely your first few.
What interests you the most? Were you raised with like a religious upbringing?
No,
And they like all.
my parents are atheists in LA.
So this is your. Right.
Currently, I'm reading William James's Varieties of Religious Experience. Have you come across that? Or?
No, I'm not familiar.
He's a scientist and philosopher, a founding member of the School of Pragmatism, which is it's an orientation toward practical philosophy. So you're pretty good at this. Have you been interviewing a few people?
Yeah, I kind of started like trying to employ this with my friends and family since I discovered it on YouTube. And, you know, this is like, you know, bleeding in irony to say this, but I see a lot of parallels between this type of discussion and the way that I used to communicate with people when I was a Mormon missionary.
Sure. Well, you don't want to turn people off.
Yeah.
The art of persuasion. It's consistent across all.
Yeah. I think it was more just the understanding, from my perspective then, the goal was conversion, and I came to believe that people really didn't have an interest in talking about your beliefs. They wanted to talk about their own, but often in talking about their beliefs, it was a good segue into, you know, my religion. And often by like exploring just the way people have interacted with spirituality, you can sort of choose which door is the easiest to open for them into converting them to my own ideas.
I like this.
Yeah, it's not in a conversation unless there's a mutual exchange. You're not going to get as much out of it if it's one way.
Yeah.
Plastic.
I think I'd like to hear some other people.
Yeah. Thank you for kind of like co-interviewing me here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I've never seen like such a mutualistic street epistemology conversation. Good back and forth.
Yeah.
Remind me your name again, I'm so sorry.
Chris.
Chris, okay.
And actually, I blanked on yours as well.
Jacob. It'll take like 3 tries.